Jake Carter woke up at 5 in the morning, just like he had every day for the past 3 years. The cabin was quiet and dark. He rolled out of his simple bed and walked to the window. The Montana forest stretched out before him, covered in morning mist. He liked it this way. No people, no noise, no problems. Jake put on his boots and stepped outside. The air was cold and clean. He breathed it in deeply. This was his place. He had built every board, every nail, every joint with his own hands. After leaving the Marines, he wanted nothing more than to be alone. The cabin sat on 20 acres of forest land. Jake had picked this spot carefully. It was far from any road, hidden by tall pine trees. A small stream ran nearby, giving him fresh water. Solar panels on the roof gave him power. He had everything he needed. Jake walked to his workshop behind the cabin. He kept his tools there, along with spare parts and supplies. Everything was exactly where he had left it. He liked order. He liked knowing where things belonged. But something felt wrong. Jake stopped walking. He looked around carefully. The forest seemed normal. Birds sang in the trees. Wind moved through the branches. Nothing looked different. But after years in the military, Jake knew when to trust his gut. Something was not right. He walked back to the cabin and checked the front door. The lock was still in place. The windows were secure. Nothing seemed disturbed. But the feeling stayed with him all day. 3 days later, Jake went hunting. He needed meat for the winter, and deer were moving through the area. He packed his rifle, some food, and basic camping gear. The hunting trip would take him away from the cabin for 2 days. When Jake returned, he knew someone had been inside his home. Nothing was stolen, nothing was broken, but small things were different. His coffee cup sat in a different spot on the counter. The blanket on his chair was folded in a way he never folded it. Someone had used his shower. The soap was moved. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. This was his place, his home. No one was supposed to be here. He searched the cabin carefully. Whoever had been inside was neat and careful. They had cleaned up after themselves. They had even washed his dishes and put them away. But they had definitely been here. Jake checked outside for tracks or signs. He found a few footprints near the back door. They were strange, longer and narrower than human feet. The toes seemed different too. Jake had tracked many animals and people during his military service. These prints were unlike anything he had seen before. Over the next week, the visits continued. Each time Jake left the cabin, someone came back. They always cleaned up. They never took anything. But they used his things, his bed, his kitchen, his bathroom. Jake decided to set up a trap. He had some old security cameras from his military days, small ones that could hide easily. Jake placed them around the cabin, pointing at the doors and windows. He also set up motion sensors. If someone came near his cabin, he would know. 2 days later, Jake was checking his rabbit traps when his phone buzzed. The motion sensors had detected something. Jake ran back to the cabin as fast as he could, but whoever had been there was gone. Jake checked the cameras that night. What he saw made him question his own eyes. The figure on the camera was tall and thin, much taller than any human Jake knew. Their skin seemed to glow with a soft blue-green light. They moved like liquid, smooth and flowing. Their head was larger than a human head, with big dark eyes that seemed to see everything. This was not a human. This was something else entirely. Jake watched the recording over and over. The being moved around his cabin like they knew where everything was. They used his tools. They fixed his broken radio with movements too fast to follow clearly. They seemed to understand his equipment better than Jake did himself. But they were careful, respectful. They put everything back where it belonged. They even improved some things. The radio now picked up signals it had never received before. The water filter ran better than when Jake had first installed it. Jake realized this being was not trying to hurt him or steal from him. They seemed to be trying to help, but that made him more confused than angry. The next morning, Jake decided to wait. Instead of leaving the cabin, he hid in the woods nearby with binoculars. He wanted to see this creature in daylight. He wanted to know what they really were. Around noon, the being appeared. They moved through the forest without making any sound. Their blue-green skin was even more beautiful in daylight. They wore no clothes, but their skin seemed to have natural patterns that looked like clothing. They were definitely not human. The being went to Jake's cabin and tried the door. When they found it locked, they seemed confused. They had always been able to enter before. They walked around the cabin checking windows. Jake took a deep breath and made a decision that would change his life forever. He stood up from his hiding place and walked toward the cabin. The being saw him and froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Jake could see fear in those large dark eyes, but he also saw intelligence. This was a thinking, feeling creature. Jake stopped about 10 feet away. He held up his hands to show he had no weapons. The being watched him carefully. "You've been staying in my cabin," Jake said quietly. The being tilted their head. They seemed to understand his words. "Safe here," the being said in a voice like music. The words were slow and careful, like someone learning a new language. "You build good. We share?" Jake stared at this impossible creature. Everything he thought he knew about the world had just changed. But somehow, looking into those intelligent eyes, he felt no fear, only curiosity. "Who are you?" Jake asked. The being looked around nervously, as if checking for danger. Then they looked back at Jake. "Need help," they said simply. "Ship broken. Hide from bad ones. Your place safe." Before Jake could ask more questions, a sound filled the air. Helicopters. Military helicopters. They were still far away, but getting closer fast. The being's eyes filled with terror. They looked at Jake with something that looked like hope mixed with fear. Jake heard his old training kick in. When fellow soldiers were in danger, you helped them. It didn't matter if this being was human or not. They were scared and asking for help. "Come on," Jake said, motioning toward the cabin. "Let's get you inside." Jake led the being into his cabin just as the helicopter sounds grew louder. The creature moved quickly but quietly, like they had done this many times before. Jake could see they were used to hiding. "Down here," Jake said, opening a hidden door, in his kitchen floor. Below was a small basement room he had built for emergencies. It had food, water, and basic supplies. "Stay quiet no matter what happens." The being looked at Jake with those large, dark eyes. "You help me." "Why?" Jake didn't have a good answer. He just knew it felt right. "Because you asked for help." The being nodded and climbed down into the hidden room. Jake closed the floor door and put a small rug over it. From above, no one could tell it was there. The helicopters circled overhead for an hour. Jake sat at his kitchen table, drinking coffee and acting normal. Finally, they moved on to search other parts of the forest. When it was quiet again, Jake opened the hidden door. The being climbed out carefully. "Thank you," they said. Their voice was getting clearer, more human-like. "I am Zara." "Jake," he replied, pointing to himself. "Are you hurt? Do you need food or water?" Zara shook her head. "I am well, but my people are not." Jake made more coffee and sat down across from Zara. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, but when she sat, she folded her long legs gracefully. Her skin still glowed softly in the cabin's dim light. "Tell me what happened," Jake said. Zara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was sad. "My world is dying. Too many wars. Too much damage. We had to leave." She paused, looking for the right words. 12 ships, families, children. We looked for new home." Jake listened without interrupting. He had heard stories like this from human refugees during his military service. "Bad ones followed us," Zara continued. "They hunt us across the stars. They destroy refugee ships for fun, call themselves void hunters." "How many ships made it here?" Jake asked. "Only mine. Others were destroyed or scattered." Zara's glow dimmed, and Jake realized this was how her people showed sadness. I crashed 3 weeks ago. Been hiding since then. Why my cabin? Jake asked. There are bigger places, towns, cities. Zara smiled, and when she did, her glow became warmer. I watched you first, many days. You live with the forest, not against it. You build things that help, not hurt. Your kind usually builds to destroy everything around them, but not you. Jake felt something strange in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or recognition. You've been studying humans? Yes. My job was to see if your people could be trusted, if we could live together in peace. Zara looked around the cabin. Your home showed me it was possible. Over the next few days, Jake learned more about his unusual guest. Zara was incredibly smart and understood technology in ways that amazed him. She showed him how to improve his solar panels so they worked even on cloudy days. She fixed his water filter so it ran twice as fast and cleaned the water better than before. In return, Jake taught Zara about human survival skills, how to start a fire without matches, which plants were safe to eat, how to read weather patterns. By watching the sky and feeling the wind, they made a good team, but the military kept searching. Every few days, helicopters would fly overhead. Sometimes soldiers walked through the forest nearby. Jake always hid Zara in the basement room when they came close. They are looking for me, Zara said after one particularly close call. Maybe I should leave. Find somewhere else to hide. No, Jake said firmly. This is safer. They've already searched this area several times. They'll move on soon. But Jake was wrong. On a cold morning in October, Jake was outside chopping wood when he heard vehicles approaching. Real vehicles, not just helicopters. They were coming down the old logging road that passed near his property. Jake ran inside. Zara, get downstairs, now! She moved quickly, but before she disappeared into the hidden room, she grabbed Jake's hand. Her skin was warm and smooth. If something happens to me, she said, tell them I chose to come here, I chose to trust humans, I chose you. Before Jake could answer, she was gone and the floor was sealed. 3 military vehicles stopped in front of Jake's cabin. 6 soldiers got out, along with 2 people in civilian clothes. One was a woman with short gray hair and colonel's insignia on her jacket. The other was an older man with thick glasses carrying scientific equipment. The colonel walked up to Jake's porch. She moved with the confidence of someone used to being in charge. Mr. Carter, I'm Colonel Patricia Morrison, United States Air Force. This is Dr. Henry Walsh from the Government Science Division. We need to ask you some questions. Jake nodded. What can I do for you, Colonel? We're looking for something that crashed in this area about a month ago. Have you seen anything unusual? Any strange lights, sounds, or objects? Jake kept his face neutral. Years of military training helped him stay calm. No, ma'am. Nothing like that. Dr. Walsh stepped forward. He was studying the area around Jake's cabin with some kind of scanning device. Interesting, Dr. Walsh said. The soil composition here is unusual. Higher mineral content than it should be. And these trees are growing faster than normal for this altitude and climate. Jake's heart started beating faster. He hadn't noticed these changes, but apparently Zara's presence was affecting the environment around his cabin. We'd like to search your property if you don't mind, Colonel Morrison said. It wasn't really a request. Do you have a warrant? Jake asked. The colonel smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. We can get one if needed, but we're hoping you'll cooperate voluntarily. This is a matter of national security. Jake looked at the soldiers. They all carried weapons and looked ready to use them. He thought about Zara hiding in the basement. He thought about her fear when she heard the helicopters. He thought about her trust in him. Search all you want, Jake said. But I haven't seen anything unusual. The search took 2 hours. The soldiers were thorough but respectful of Jake's property. Dr. Walsh kept taking readings and making notes. Colonel Morrison asked Jake many questions about his daily routine, whether he'd seen any other people in the area, and if he'd noticed any changes in the local wildlife. Jake answered honestly when he could, and lied smoothly when he had to. He told them about the deer movements and weather patterns. He didn't mention the strange footprints or the improvements to his equipment. Finally, the search team prepared to leave, but Dr. Walsh seemed reluctant to go. "Colonel, I really think we should set up monitoring equipment in this area," he said. "The environmental changes suggest ongoing activity." "We'll consider it," Colonel Morrison replied. She turned back to Jake. "Mr. Carter, if you see anything at all, contact us immediately." She handed him a card with a phone number. Day or night. After the vehicles left, Jake waited 30 minutes before opening the hidden room. Zara climbed out slowly. She looked tired and scared. "They know something," she said. "That man with the instruments, he detected changes I made to help the forest grow better." Jake nodded. "They'll be back. We need to be more careful." Zara sat down heavily in Jake's chair. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked defeated. "Maybe I should surrender," she said quietly. "Turn myself in. Stop putting you in danger." "No," Jake said immediately. "You're not putting me in danger. I'm choosing to help you." "But why?" Zara asked. "I'm not human. I'm not your people. Why risk everything for me?" Jake thought about it for a moment. "Because you're scared and alone and asking for help. Because you've been nothing but respectful of my home. Because you make things better instead of worse." He paused. "And because this place feels more like home with you in it." Zara's glow brightened and Jake realized he had said something important. "Our home," she said softly. "Not yours. Ours." For the first time since the soldiers had left, Jake smiled. "Yeah. Our home." Winter was coming to Montana, and Jake knew the military searches would slow down. Snow would make it harder for them to move through the forest. It would also make it harder for aircraft to see clearly, but it would make survival more difficult, too. Jake had always prepared carefully for winter. He cut firewood, stored food, and checked all his equipment. This year, he had help. Zara was amazing with technology. She took pieces from her crashed ship and combined them with Jake's human tools. Together, they created things that should have been impossible. "Show me how your heating works," Zara said one morning in early November. Jake led her to his wood stove and explained how he used it to heat the whole cabin. Zara studied it carefully, running her long fingers over the metal and pipes. "Inefficient," she said. "Much energy wasted." "It keeps me warm," Jake replied. "That's all I need." Zara smiled. "But we can make it better. Use less wood. Make more heat. Want to try?" Jake had learned to trust Zara's improvements. Everything she touched worked better than before. "What do you need?" Zara went to her collection of salvaged ship parts. She pulled out several pieces that looked like crystals mixed with metal. They glowed faintly with the same blue-green light as her skin. "These store energy," she explained. "During day, they collect heat from fire and sun. At night, they release it slowly. Your cabin stays warm all time." Working together, they installed Zara's energy crystals into Jake's heating system. The work took 3 days. Jake provided the tools and human engineering knowledge. Zara provided the advanced technology and understanding of energy flow. When they finished, the change was incredible. The cabin stayed perfectly warm using half as much wood. Even better, the crystals seemed to clean the air as they worked. Jake had never breathed so easily inside his home. "Our home works better now," Zara said, admiring their work. Jake noticed. She always said "our home" now. Never your home or the home, always ours. The word made him feel warm in a way that had nothing to do with the improved heating. They didn't stop with just heating. Zara showed Jake how to improve his water system so pipes wouldn't freeze in winter. She upgraded his solar panels to work, even when covered with snow. She enhanced his radio so it could pick up signals from incredible distances. But their biggest project was defense. "The bad ones might come," Zara said one day while they worked on camouflage netting. "Void hunters are good at tracking. If they find me." "They won't," Jake said firmly. "And if they do, we'll be ready." Zara had salvaged a cloaking device from her ship. It wasn't strong enough to hide something as large as the cabin completely. But Jake had an idea. Using his knowledge of military, camouflage and Zara's advanced technology, they created something new. The cloaking device didn't make the cabin invisible. Instead, it made it look like part of the forest. From above, thermal cameras would see only trees and rocks. Visual inspection would show a small hill covered with bushes. Even if someone walked right up to it, the cabin would be hard to spot. Humans are good at hiding, Zara said admiringly as they tested their camouflage. Your military knowledge helps much. Jake felt pride at the compliment. We're good at adapting, using what we have to solve problems. Yes, Zara agreed. This is why I chose your people. You make things work. As winter deepened, Jake and Zara settled into a comfortable routine. Jake hunted and gathered firewood. Zara worked on her communication equipment, trying to contact other refugee ships that might have survived. In the evenings, they shared stories. Jake told Zara about his time in the military, about building the cabin, about choosing to live alone in the forest. Zara told Jake about her home world, about the wars that destroyed it, about the long journey through space looking for a new home. My people live in groups always, Zara explained one snowy evening. Families, communities, cities. We think together, decide together, work together. Being alone was very hard for me at first. But you're good at it now, Jake observed. Zara's glow warmed. You taught me, showed me how to be independent but not lonely, how to choose your own family. Jake understood what she meant. He had been alone for years, but he had never been lonely like this. Having Zara in his home working beside him, sharing meals and conversations felt natural and right. We make a good team, he said. Yes. We do. One night in December, Zara's communication equipment finally worked. She had been trying for months to contact other refugee ships. Jake watched as she operated controls that looked like liquid light mixed with solid metal. Suddenly, Zara's whole body brightened with excitement. Signal, she said. I found one. Jake listened as Zara spoke in her own language. It sounded like music mixed with whispers. Beautiful, but alien. After several minutes, she turned back to Jake with joy and worry mixed in her expression. And news and bad news, she said. Give me both. Good news. There are survivors. 3 ships made it to this part of space. About 200 of my people are alive. Zara paused. Bad news. Void hunters followed them. They are hunting in this system. Now, Jake felt his blood go cold. How long do we have? Maybe weeks, maybe days. Void hunters are very good at tracking energy signatures. When I use the communicator, they can detect it. So we stop using it. Zara shook her head. Too late. They know survivors are here now. They will search every planet, every moon, until they find us. Jake stood up and began pacing. His military training kicked in automatically. When facing a superior enemy, you had 3 choices: run, hide, or fight. Running meant abandoning everything they had built together. Hiding meant living in fear forever. Fighting meant... What are void hunters exactly? Jake asked. How do they fight? Zara described ships the size of cities, weapons that could destroy, planets hunters who killed for pleasure rather than necessity. They sounded unstoppable. But Jake had learned something important during his military service. No enemy was truly unstoppable. Every force had weaknesses. Every plan had flaws. The key was finding them. Do they attack planets directly? Or do they send smaller ships first? Smaller ships. They scout and hunt survivors on the ground. The big ships stay in space. How many in a hunting party? Usually 3 or 4. They think all other species are weak and stupid. They don't bring many. Jake smiled grimly. Then they don't know humans very well. Zara looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, maybe it's time to stop hiding and start fighting back. Jake, oh, you don't understand. Void hunters are very dangerous. Their weapons, their technology. Their technology is better than ours, Jake agreed. But they're not expecting humans to help refugees fight back. They're not expecting us to work together. And they're definitely not expecting human military. Tactics, Zara stared at him. You want to ambush them. I want to protect our home, Jake corrected. And everyone in it? Zara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. You would risk your life for my people, people you have never met. I'd risk my life for you, Jake said simply. And if your people are important to you, then they're important to me too. Zara's glow became so bright that Jake had to squint. When she spoke, her voice was full of emotion. This is why I chose humans. This is why I chose you. You don't just survive. You protect others too. Jake felt something shift in his chest. For years, he had lived alone, protecting only himself. Now he was part of something bigger. He was protecting their home, their partnership, their future together. So we fight? Zara asked. We fight, Jake confirmed. But we fight smart. We fight together. And we win. Outside, snow fell softly on their camouflaged cabin. Inside, two very different beings from two very different worlds began planning humanity's first interstellar battle. It would be a battle fought not for conquest or revenge, but for the simple right to call a place home. For the right to choose your own family. For the right to protect the people you care about. Jake looked at Zara, his partner, his friend, his chosen family. Let's get to work. Dr. Henry Walsh stood in his government laboratory, staring at readings that should have been impossible. For 3 months, he had been studying the environmental changes in the Montana forest. Every week, the changes became more dramatic. Trees were growing faster than any known species could grow. The soil was richer than it had been in decades. The stream water was purer than mountain spring water. Even the air seemed cleaner and more oxygen-rich. Colonel Morrison, Dr. Walsh called to his superior, "You need to see this." Colonel Patricia Morrison walked over to his workstation. She had been patient with Dr. Walsh's scientific investigations, but the military was getting pressure to find the alien spacecraft. What is it, Doctor? The environmental improvements are spreading. Whatever is causing them is still active and getting stronger. Dr. Walsh pointed to his charts. Look at these patterns. The changes form a circle around one central point. Where? Jake. Carter's cabin. Colonel Morrison frowned. We searched his property thoroughly. We found nothing. Then we missed something, Dr. Walsh said firmly. The evidence is clear. The source of these changes is located on or near his land. Colonel Morrison made a decision. Get Lieutenant Rodriguez and a search team ready. We're going back. Meanwhile, at the cabin, Jake and Zara were making final preparations for what they knew was coming. They had spent 2 weeks planning their defense of the forest and the refugee ships hiding in the outer solar system. The human military will come first, Jake said, checking his equipment. They know something is here, but they don't know what. We need to handle them before the Void Hunters arrive. Zara nodded. She was wearing a device that looked like jewelry but was actually advanced armor. I have been thinking. Maybe it is time to stop hiding. Jake looked up from his weapons check. What do you mean? Your people are not stupid. They know I am here. They want to find me. Maybe instead of them finding me, I should find them. That's dangerous, Zara. What if they try to capture you or hurt you? Zara's glow dimmed with worry. Also dangerous to keep hiding. Void Hunters will come soon. When they do, your people need to know what they are facing. Need to be ready to fight together. Jake realized she was right. Humans couldn't fight an enemy they didn't know about, and the military couldn't prepare for a battle they didn't know was coming. You want to make contact officially, Jake said. Tell them about the Void Hunters. Yes, but not alone. With you. Jake felt his heart skip. Me? I'm just a guy with a cabin in the woods. No, Zara said firmly. You are the human who chose to trust me, who helped me, who made alliance between our peoples possible. You are important. Before Jake could argue, his motion sensors went off. Vehicles were approaching on the old logging road. They're back, Jake said. Earlier than I expected. Zara stood up. Her decision was made. Time to stop hiding. Zara, wait. But she was already walking toward the door. Trust me, Jake, like I trusted you. Jake grabbed his jacket and followed her outside. 3 military vehicles were parked in front of the cabin. Colonel Morrison got out of the lead vehicle, followed by Dr. Walsh and 4 soldiers. They all stopped moving when they saw Zara standing on the porch. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Dr. Walsh dropped his scientific equipment. One of the soldiers reached for his weapon, but Colonel Morrison held up a hand to stop him. Zara stepped forward slowly, her hands visible and empty. "I am Zara of the Kelthani people. I have been waiting to meet you." Colonel Morrison found her voice. "You're the alien we've been looking for." "Yes, and you are the humans Jake told me about. I want to talk." Dr. Walsh stepped closer, his scientific excitement overcoming his shock. "Incredible. Your physiology, your bioluminescence. Are you responsible for the environmental improvements we've been tracking?" "Some of them," Zara admitted. "My technology helps things grow better, cleaner." Jake walked up beside Zara. "Colonel Morrison, Dr. Walsh, I'd like you to meet my friend. She's not an invader or a threat, she's a refugee." Colonel Morrison looked between Jake and Zara. "Mr. Carter, you've been hiding an extraterrestrial being for months. Do you understand how serious this is?" "Yes, ma'am. But I also understand how serious the situation is that brought her here." Jake took a deep breath. "There are things you need to know. Things that affect the safety of everyone on Earth." "What things?" Colonel Morrison demanded. Zara stepped forward again. "My people came here running from a great evil, hunters who destroy entire worlds for pleasure. They followed us. They are coming here." Dr. Walsh looked fascinated and terrified at the same time. "When?" "Soon," Zara said. "Days, maybe weeks. When they come, they will kill everything they find. Humans, my people, all life on this planet, unless we work together to stop them." Colonel Morrison studied Zara carefully. "Why should we believe you?" Instead of answering with words, Zara walked to her hidden communication equipment. She activated a holographic display that showed the destruction of her homeworld. Cities burning, ships fleeing, the massive dark vessels of the Void Hunters, pursuing them. "This was my home," Zara said quietly. "Beautiful world, peaceful people. The hunters came and destroyed everything in 3 days. The humans watched in horrified silence as the recording showed the final destruction of an entire civilization. They do this for entertainment," Zara continued. "They hunt refugees across the galaxy. They followed 12 of our ships. 11 were destroyed. Only mine reached the system." "How many survivors?" Dr. Walsh asked. "About 200, hiding in 3 ships in your outer solar system, afraid to land, afraid to ask for help." Zara looked at each human in turn, until Jake showed me that some humans could be trusted. Colonel Morrison was quiet for several minutes, processing what she had learned. Finally, she spoke. "What do you want from us?" "Alliance," Zara said simply. "My people have technology. Your people have something else. Courage, cleverness, the will to fight for others. Together, we might survive." Jake spoke up. "Colonel, I've seen what Zara can do. Her technology, combined with human tactics and determination, could give us a real chance." "Against an enemy that destroys entire civilizations?" Colonel Morrison shook her head. "That seems impossible." "Maybe," Jake agreed. "But Zara chose to trust humans for a reason. She's been studying us. She believes we have something these Void Hunters have never faced before." "What's that?" Dr. Walsh asked. Zara smiled, and her glow warmed. "Humans don't just fight for themselves. You fight for others. You adopt strangers into your families. You make impossible alliances work." She gestured to Jake, standing beside her. "He risked everything to protect me, not because he had to, because he chose to." "You think that makes a difference in battle?" Colonel Morrison asked skeptically. "I think it makes all the difference," Zara replied. "Void Hunters fight alone. Each one cares only for himself. But humans fight together, for each other, for people they barely know." Jake felt something click into place in his mind. She's right, Colonel. That's our advantage. Not better technology or superior firepower. Teamwork. The willingness to sacrifice for others. Colonel Morrison looked around at her soldiers, at Dr. Walsh, at Jake and Zara standing together. She was a career military officer. She understood the value of good allies and the importance of fighting for something bigger than yourself. Dr. Walsh, she said finally. Contact headquarters. Tell them we need to set up a meeting at the highest levels. We have first contact and we have a potential threat scenario that requires immediate attention. Yes, Colonel. Morrison turned back to Zara. I can't make promises about what my government will decide, but I can promise they'll listen. That is all I ask, Zara said. Chance to prove that alliance between our peoples is possible. Jake felt relief wash over him. The hiding was over. The secrets were revealed. Whatever happened next, he and Zara would face it together, with the support of at least some humans. There's something else, Jake said. This cabin, this place, where Zara and I learned to work together. It might be important. It's proof that humans and aliens cannot just coexist, but make each other better. Colonel Morrison looked around at the forest, noticing for the first time how healthy and vibrant everything looked. You've created something here, haven't you? Something new. Our home, Zara said simply. First place where human and Kelthani lived as equals. As family. Jake nodded. If we're going to build an alliance between species, maybe this is where it starts. Dr. Walsh was taking readings of everything around them, his excitement growing by the minute. The environmental improvements, the technological advances, the successful integration of two completely different species. This could be the model for peaceful coexistence. As the sun set over the Montana forest, Jake realized his quiet life as a hermit was truly over. He was now part of something much larger and more important than he had ever imagined. But looking at Zara, seeing her relief, at finally being able to stop hiding, Jake knew he had made the right choice. Some things were worth risking everything for. Some alliances were worth building no matter how difficult or dangerous. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Government officials, military planning, preparation for an enemy unlike anything Earth had ever faced. But tonight, Jake and Zara sat on the porch of their cabin watching the stars and planning for a future they would build together. No matter what happens. 3 months later, Jake's quiet forest cabin had become the most important place on Earth. Government officials from around the world had visited. Scientists had set up research stations nearby. Military planners had studied every inch of the area. But through it all, Jake and Zara had insisted on one thing. This remained their home first. The cabin itself was still simple and comfortable, but now it was surrounded by carefully hidden defensive positions, communication arrays and landing pads for the refugee ships that had finally come down from space. Jake stood on his porch in the early morning light, drinking coffee from his favorite mug. So much had changed, but some things stayed the same. He still woke up early. He still loved the quiet forest mornings. "Good morning, Jake," said a musical voice behind him. Jake turned to see Zara coming out of the cabin. She was wearing human clothes now, jeans and a flannel shirt, but her blue-green glow still shone softly through the fabric. She had learned to dim it during official meetings, but around Jake, she let it shine naturally. "Morning, Zara. Sleep well?" "Yes. The dream-sharing ceremony with my people went well last night. They are adjusting to Earth customs better each day." Jake smiled. The refugee ships had landed 2 months ago, bringing 200 Kelthani survivors to Earth. Most were staying in temporary shelters built near the cabin, but some had chosen to live with human families in nearby towns. The integration was going better than anyone had expected. "Any word from the early warning system?" Jake asked. Zara's expression grew serious. "Dr. Walsh detected something at the edge of the solar system yesterday. Could be normal space activity, but it could be void hunters." "Yes." Jake wasn't worried. They were ready. The alliance between humans and Kelthani had grown stronger every day. Human military tactics combined with Kelthani technology had created defensive systems that neither species could have built alone. More importantly, they had built trust. Jake's cabin had become the symbol of that trust. It was where the first human-alien alliance had been forged. It was where two very different beings had chosen to call each other family. Now it was where representatives from both species came to settle disputes, plan for the future, and remember what they were fighting to protect. "Jake! Zara!" Colonel Morrison's voice called from the forest path. She jogged up to the cabin, followed by Dr. Walsh and Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez. All three looked excited and worried at the same time. "What's the situation?" Jake asked. "3 ships just entered the outer solar system," Colonel Morrison reported. "Configuration matches Kelthani descriptions of Void Hunter vessels." Dr. Walsh consulted his tablet. "They're not being subtle about it. High-energy signatures, aggressive approach vectors. They want us to know they're coming." Zara nodded grimly. "That is their way. They announce themselves to spread fear." "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "They'll reach Earth orbit in about 6 hours," Lieutenant Rodriguez replied. "But they'll probably send scout ships down to the surface first." Jake felt the familiar calm of combat preparation settle over him. Then it's time. The plan they had developed was simple but effective. The Void Hunters expected to find weak, scattered refugees and primitive humans. Instead, they would find a coordinated defense that used the best of both species' abilities. Kelthani technology would hide the refugee settlements and provide advanced weapons. Human military strategy would coordinate the defense and set traps. Most importantly, both species would fight together, each protecting the other. Over the next few hours, Jake's peaceful forest transformed into a command center. Kelthani refugees took positions in hidden bunkers, operating cloaked defensive systems. Human military units spread through the forest, ready to respond to threats from any direction. Jake and Zara remained at the cabin, which had become the communication hub for the entire operation. From here, they could coordinate both human and Kelthani forces. "Nervous?" Zara asked as they made final preparations. "No," Jake said, and realized he meant it. "We're ready for this. We've trained together, planned together, built everything together. This isn't just about surviving anymore. This is about protecting what we've created." Zara's glow brightened with pride. "Yes, we are protecting our home, all of it." At 2:00 p.m., sensors detected 3 small ships entering Earth's atmosphere. They were heading directly for the Montana forest, following the energy signatures from Zara's early communication attempts months ago. "Here they come," Colonel Morrison announced over the radio. "All units, prepare for contact." Jake watched, through high-powered binoculars, as 3 dark ships descended toward the forest. They were sleek and dangerous-looking, built for hunting rather than exploration. Each ship was about the size of a small airplane, but moved with impossible grace and speed. The lead ship landed in a clearing about 2 miles from Jake's cabin. The other 2 took up positions nearby. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then ramps lowered from each ship, and the Void Hunters emerged. Jake had seen recordings of them from Zara's people, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall and angular, with dark armor that seemed to absorb light. They moved with predatory confidence, clearly expecting no real resistance. 12 hunters total, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his observation post. Armed with energy weapons, scanning equipment, and what looks like capture gear. "They plan to take prisoners," Zara said quietly, "for sport." The Void Hunters began moving through the forest toward the refugee settlements. They advanced in loose formation, scanning for life signs and energy signatures. Their equipment quickly detected both human and Kelthani presence in the area. What they didn't detect were the traps. The first Void Hunter stepped on a pressure plate Jake had built using Kelthani cloaking technology. The plate was completely invisible and undetectable until activated. A net made of energy-conducting fibers wrapped around the hunter, delivering a stunning charge that dropped him instantly. "Contact," Colonel Morrison announced. "First target down." The remaining hunters immediately went on high alert. They formed a defensive circle and began scanning more carefully. But now they were exactly where Jake and Zara wanted them. Human. Snipers hidden in trees began taking careful shots with weapons enhanced by Kelthani energy technology. Each shot was precise and effective. The hunter's armor was designed to stop primitive projectiles, but it couldn't handle human precision combined with alien power systems. At the same time, Kelthani defenders activated camouflage defensive positions. Energy barriers appeared out of nowhere, channeling the hunters into kill zones. Weapon systems hidden in the forest floor began targeting the invaders with devastating accuracy. But the most effective weapon was coordination. Every human soldier knew exactly where every Kelthani defender was positioned. Every Kelthani knew how to support human tactical movements. They fought as one integrated force, each species covering the weaknesses of the other. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it was over, all 12 Void Hunters had been captured or eliminated. Their ships were disabled but intact, providing valuable intelligence about their technology and methods. All units report in. Colonel Morrison called over the radio. One by one, human and Kelthani teams checked in. No casualties on their side. Complete victory. Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. Zara was glowing brightly with satisfaction and relief. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it." "We did it together," Jake corrected. "Human and Kelthani. Just like everything else we've built here." Over the following days, the captured Void Hunter technology provided valuable intelligence. Earth's combined human-Kelthani fleet was able to track down the main Void Hunter ships in the outer solar system and destroy them before they could send word back to their commanders. The threat was ended, but more importantly, the alliance was proven. Jake stood on his porch 1 month after the battle, watching the sunset paint the forest in golden light. The area was peaceful again, but it was a different kind of peace. It was the peace of a community that had faced danger together and won. Kelthani families were building permanent homes nearby, using a combination of their technology and human construction methods. Human families were moving to the area too, drawn by the opportunity to be part of history's first successful interspecies community. The cabin itself remained much the same. Jake had insisted on that. It was still his and Zara's home, the place where their partnership had begun. But now, it was also something more. It was a symbol of what was possible when different peoples chose to trust each other. "Jake," Zara said, coming to stand beside him on the porch, "I received a message today from the Kelthani Council. They want to make this place an official embassy between our peoples." Jake nodded. "Makes sense. This is where it all started. But that means more changes, more people, more responsibilities." Zara looked at him with concern. "Are you ready for that?" Jake thought about the question seriously. 3 months ago, he had been a hermit living alone in the woods, avoiding all human contact. Now he was at the center of the most important alliance in human history. "Remember when you first showed up here?" he asked Zara. "You said you wanted to share my home." "Yes." "And you said yes." "I'm still saying yes," Jake told her. "To sharing our home, to building something bigger than either of us could create alone, to whatever comes next." Zara's glow warmed, and she took his.